menjelang dimulainya acara resmi wisuda untuk program Master of Law LL.M. Hari ini kolega dari Indonesia yang wisuda adalah ini Faisal dengan batik khasnya. Oh, dengan kawan-kawan. Ada Faisal lagi berbicara dengan Irma ya. Saya tidak tahu itu batiknya pinjaman atau bukan. Tapi ini batiknya bagus. This is Obi, President of Nigeria.
Yes, and that's my professor. That's my professor talking.
Ngapain? Udah, cukup. Nama panjangnya Alberto Bonasahat Yosua Utasoid. Ini Pak Ernadi, wartawan lampu koran kuning. Menjelang dimulainya opening speech for LL.M graduation in August 24, 2006. There are professors and photographers. Yeah, professor. This is 5-star.
Yeah.
I was wondering, Indonesian students work separate.
Segregation.
It was raining every day. That's life. So that looking into the number of students, and we have 2 sessions. In fact, we have 3 sessions because 1 session in June and then 2 sessions in August. Means already that we have a rather big group of students coming to Utrecht. And if I remember well, when we started it, we came up with all the issues of international criminal law. And especially if you look into the situation at this time, the struggle against terrorism is especially the field where human rights and criminal law are meeting. And whatever you take, whatever measure you take, every measure to suppress or to prevent terrorism are within the constraints of human rights. You cannot go across that line. And that is a challenging field for research, and I have seen that many of you, to one or another way, has actually also in the past on this program for LL.M.
Is it on? Yes. For a start, congratulations to this entire group. I graduated in this room myself 5 years ago, and I can see Amaka Okani, can you put your hand, Amaka? And Irene and Praitno, who can testify to the fact that we graduated together in this room 5 years ago. So it brings back, I want me to be here today to discuss the alumni project, its future and your role in the success of the alumni project. For a start, to one of my professors. I'm very anxious and worried about what job I'll have after the LL.M, my future prospects. And he said, don't worry about that, it's an accident. Your career is an accident. Things will just work out all right. And I didn't believe him, and I still don't believe him. And what I do believe in is the strength of having something that will serve you well after today. I can say that I remember traveling to Rwanda, to the Rwanda Tribunal in Arusha, Tanzania in May 2004 for my field research. And the preparation for this field research was made much easier by the fact that two very dear friends, both graduates from the alumni project, were working as prosecutors in Tanzania for the UN Tribunal. One is Alexis from Trinidad and Tobago. She graduated from the William Pope Institute in 2002. And a common experience that creates a bond. It's a bond that grows in a 9 to 12 month period, but also a bond that you shouldn't discard once you graduate. In 6 years, I've seen my Utrecht alumni network grow and grow and grow. And I also know that in this room, you have your own networks which you're developing. We're very angry about this, Professor Leo's work. In my year, there was only one man in the human rights program enrolled. And at the end of the academic year, within a month of graduation, he married Ava Sayowitz, and Ava was also on the human rights program. And I remember I warned you at the beginning of the year, I said, be careful. You might leave Utrecht with more than you bargained for, maybe a husband or a wife. And I don't know if that's the case, but I know some of you have left with a new baby, for example. But I hope you are leaving with more than you bargained for, of such an experience that has changed your life. I hope you're leaving with a little bit of sadness to leave beautiful Utrecht behind, but I hope mostly you're leaving with
Well, thank you to say that looking at the table, at least I do my best. Those who are standing there, there's a place you can find the seat. Well, now we will start with the official part of this graduation, and all of you should make a suit. And first it will be the Professor Diamonds. It was an interesting research on the question of the right to fair trial and the related difficulties in international criminal law. And also looking into the... Okay, sorry.
Don't worry, I'm not going to attempt Norwegian. But I did want to do the next best thing, and I'd like to start with something.
Dear Albert, I learned to know you in one of the courses I gave, the course on Built Nations, and already then I thought, what an optimistic guy. He's always laughing, he's always cheering. And I admire you that even during the writing process of your thesis, in which you didn't make it quite easy for you, you kept on smiling all the time. It was really good. Albert, you wrote a remarkable, a very good thesis, in which you dealt with the question whether, according to international norms and standards, the Indonesian government, the government of your country, fairly and genuinely dealt with historical injustices during the Semanggi and Trisakti tragedies that occurred during the period of political transition in Indonesia in the years of 1998 and 1999. The idea behind bringing up that question was that by investigating the governmental responses in the field of offering justice and reparations to the victims of the Semanggi and Trisakti tragedies, more insight could be gained on to what extent the new democratic Indonesia was prepared to deal with historical injustices of the past in general. You wrote a remarkable and very good thesis on a topic which not only interested you as an academic, but it also has an important emotional value to you, because as you write in the beginning of your thesis, during the Semanggi tragedy, you lost one of your dearest friends who was shot point blank. I do know that as your supervisor, I made your life sometimes quite miserable, forcing you to do better, and then. And I can imagine that you sometimes left my room with the thought, when is this guy finally going to be satisfied? Dear Albert, I can tell you I am now. It was an enormous pleasure to supervise you, not only because you made me proud on your end product, but also because you showed how in a relatively short time someone can improve himself enormously. And to be a part of that process is the best thing which can happen to a supervisor. Congratulations.
First of all,
it was a bit of a race against the clock at the end, and I'm very happy.
nice holiday to But now you have spoken in that language, I don't think that I will do it. Don't be afraid. The next one I want to ask to come here is Ellie Lewis. Will be addressed also by Professor IEPHRs.
Self-evident speaks for itself by the fact that she has touched upon a very important issue for international criminal law nowadays, namely the tension between orders given to military servicemen on the one hand and compliance with international law on the other hand. And the reason why she was so highly awarded was to comply with international standards. Ms. Lewis has elaborated on a very important
all the opportunities go in more detail in this international criminal law, and it's down with sort of excellent piece. Okay, let's continue now with next person, Dana Madu, and you will be addressed by next. Well, I do that with passion. As a student who also has
Professor, that's the high compliments. And that is why I first have to mention one condition. You cannot return them. Whenever I gave you a compliment, you used to say, oh, profits only you. La habita cum laude. Congratulations.
Here that I would support it. The next, and I know that I will pronounce the first we have Chikli Praviti, and it's very pleasant to have you here because we miss you for a while, but for a very good reason, as we have seen there, the baby. And you will be addressed by Peter Martin.
Chikli, before I start, I want to ask you a favor, because when I was speaking to Albert, I completely forgot. I came to know you as one of my students in the course Guild of Nations, and you struck me because you became, when I started to supervise you, the first student who brought me delicious lunches when we discussed chapters. And I can tell you, those lunches were better than what you get in the average in the American restaurant. Ensuring effective civilian control of military and security forces. Moreover, you too emphasized that offering conditional reparations by making it dependent on amnesty is a flagrant violation violation of international norms and standards as being described in the basic principles and guidelines on the right to remedy and reparations for victims of gross violations of human rights as they have been adopted a year ago by the General Assembly of the UN. You furthermore referred to the functioning of the South African TRC and concluded that there are lessons to be learned from this specific case. Like the Indonesian TRC, but South Africa was also entitled to offer amnesty and reparations. However, in this specific case, amnesty was conditional and could only be offered on the basis of public acknowledgement of being guilty of violations of human rights.
You struck me as a very modest and very kind student. Well, considering the marks that you can be very proud of, I think it's time for you to start to be a little less modest. Well, I've supervised more students together with Van Bovenkerk, and I can assure you this happens all the time. Students in criminal law.
Did the pictures go or something?
I don't know.
You don't
have friends.
They are somewhere anyway. Unfortunately, they could not come here. Then it's my pleasure to ask Faisal Takman to come forward, and he will address by me. Dear Faisal, you were a pleasant student, always optimistic, always, and always having a good mood, and also working hard, always making notes. I never seen this student. I didn't check what you wrote down, but anyway, I believe that. Also, during our discussions, you did make notes about the things because we're not discussing the thesis. So, and also in that respect, and I know that the Indonesian food is excellent because also I will do that also. Let's come now to your work here, and I think that they have to mention because you worked very hard, and that also has led to an honorable mention. So, and also your thesis, which you, when I discussed with you the thesis, you knew already what you wanted to do easier. And also you know that in international law the answer to this question is still not anonymous, but there are hardly any scholar now who completely denies this disability. And first, before you started into the question of Indonesia, you started to make a study of the Dutch courts and the courts in South Africa. We had a certain, well, a little bit disagreement about the way how the Dutch courts are applying socio-economic rights, because there are mapping to exceptions. But again, you use that, what you found, for your main question you wanted to answer. Well, because Indonesia and their commitment to protecting human rights, which have been enshrined already in the Constitution of 1945, and according to you, Indonesia should recognize the disability in that respect. Well, you indicate that by investigating the various levels of jurisdiction, different jurisdictions in Indonesia, judges has sometimes decided in that respect, and that they accepted the disability. But the main difficulty in your country is that the crucial role is in the hands of the function of the Constitutional Court in Indonesia. And it's their duty to guard and to give interpretation to the Constitution of 1945. So, in that respect, they should give the final answer. Well, you gave some examples that those courts also did not decide that there was a violation in that respect, but they ordered that certain measures should be taken to the same respect as you wanted. And in that you ask in your final conclusions and suggestions that it should be the churches should be more aware of the obligations of Indonesia with respect to the implementation of economic rights, and also that the legislature and also the executive should correct these terms and the defect in such a way, because Indonesia, in your opinion, and I agree with that, has these obligations as a party to the government and has to meet these obligations. But again, this is a difficult issue, and the final answer is not been given yet. You did in your research, at least you make a starting point and found some good points with respect to the domestic court in Indonesia. I wish you a lot of success in your further career, and again, it was a pleasure to have you, and I want to congratulate this graduation. Okay, the next Regidio panel is a pleasure to have you here, and also the pleasure for me that I can address you. Well, I never have met a student who wanted to take all the courses that was possible. It's the international office, and driving her crazy. Sometimes when you started with your question, because I knew already that you would not be for your way how we should fight against impunity. And in that respect, you looked also into the Dutch attitude to that, and there you said at least the public prosecutor starts to investigate, and even also, in your opinion, and I agree with that, the trial is not the way how it should be dealt with, and maybe
really, like your predecessors, Mr. Gard, Ms. van der Bel, you were one of the outstanding students in the master's course in International Criminal Tribunals, in which you featured sometimes as prosecutor, and I remember that each of these occupations or was a privilege to have as a student. And it's not a surprise that on the basis, I think, of your affinity with international criminal law, you chose a thesis subject on this very important area of international law. And you've chosen a subject which is, I think, of perennial concern for the developments within the international criminal tribunals, namely the issue of state cooperation, which would deviate from the obligation. But at the same time, you recognize the importance that states are obliged to cooperate with the tribunals, without which no tribunal could actually function. And I think your thesis is very important because you went specifically into the issue of the honorable mention of cum laude. And we hope that, like the other students, I may assume and hope you will remember your time here in Utrecht as productive and of stimulation for your future career. And I personally enjoyed very much working with all of you in the master's class in International Criminal Tribunals. Congratulate you and wish you all the best.
Could not be found, and it turned out that it became more or less acceptable. That's the way of life. You have to accept it, this violence. Well, you wanted to find out how can we combat it, and you found and already by going into the question of especially of the state authority, doesn't function anymore. It has been taken over by economic powers and other organizations, and criminal organizations, and the whole system of state authority does not function simply because of this globalization and this weak system of the economic protection. How can you find a way to work on that in that respect? There might be possibilities to fight against this way of enforcement and disappearance, which become a normal pattern in those countries. And in that respect, I was very impressed by the way how you described that and how you dealt with that. That for that reason you have a way for your team. In what they call Medewerkers Café. Stop. Stop. Well, I have seen clubs that visit Medewerkers Café might be. Well, everybody has been invited, and thank you for being here.
Ya ini para jawara ganteng-ganteng. Gayamu lepas, Cal, lepas.
thing.
Yes.
How do you feel today?
Very good, very happy.
Okay.
Very congratulations to you.
And to you as well.
Thank you. It was a fantastic accomplishment.
And the most question, how did you find Utrecht?
I like it. It's a calm town, but there's always something to do.
The climate?
It's for the intellectuals like you.
Oh no. And then a very specific question. Please give me a comment about Faisal.
About you. The smartest person that I know. We got into very heated arguments sometimes during class, but it was very nice to hold a conversation and both have like real arguments to fight against each other. We agree on almost everything. He's very smart. I wish we had judges like that in Mexico because I'm sure the country would be so much better.
And what is your
friendly and social?
What is your first impression when you know that he's a judge?
Oh, I didn't believe him just because he was so friendly and so accommodating and so sociable and everything. And you always think of judges of being very straightforward and everything, but he wasn't. And so when I found out, I was like, wow, that's super. Now I'm definitely going to his country.
And where are you living from Netherlands?
I'm going to Mexico for a couple of months, continue some research work, and then hopefully start finding a PhD program.
Where?
Don't know. Start finding.
USA?
Maybe, but maybe USA, maybe Mexico. It depends. I'm still unsure between Latin America and the US. Most likely the US.
With Spain? I mean with Spain language or with English? I mean, you wanna do your PhD in Spain?
Oh, yeah, in Spanish or in English?
Yeah.
I personally wouldn't mind in Spanish because I've done everything in English.
Yeah.
But most likely it's going to happen in English though.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Have a nice trip.
To everyone.
And good luck with your PhD program.
Same to you. Good luck with your career.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sure you will.
English, please.
Nee, ja, zeg maar dat was zeg maar net een zomercursus, maar ook internationaal. De klomjes en dat was, nog steeds contact met de mensen. En als ze in de buurt zijn, dan spreek je eraf.
How do you feel today?
What I feel?
Yeah.
I feel relieved. I feel, okay, finally we're done. Time for vacation.
Okay. And specific question about Faisal.
Faisal?
Yeah.
Faisal, that crazy guy from Indonesia?
Yeah.
Okay. As we should.
Yeah, can you describe about Faisal and when you get in touch with Faisal?
Faisal, I would describe Faisal as someone who's warm, always ready to help you, very ambitious also.
Yeah.
He wants to perform, he wants to have good grades.
Is it really?
Yes. Yes. He's trying his hard. He wants to.
And the last question, what is your first impression when you know that he's a judge?
When he's a judge?
Yeah, when you know that
I thought he's a judge. He's from Indonesia, so he might be corrupt. No. To be serious, when I heard he was a judge, I was like, really, he's a judge? Because when I have the idea of a judge, I picture a judge normally like, some older person and stuff, and wise. But I mean, you are young, like me and stuff, and I think you're already a judge. So that was basically my first impression, like, what, he's a judge? I couldn't believe that he was a judge, but he is a judge.
But now you believe it?
I believe him, of course. I don't expect him to lie about that.
Okay.
So I believe him.
Okay. Thank you, Regilio, and see you on the parallel party.
Thank you.